Don Williams, welcome back to the Soccer Queens podcast.
Erica, it's always a pleasure, and at least we enjoy our conversations. I
I,
hope everybody else does too.
I actually checked the last time you came on the podcast was 3 months ago. So it's been a while. And honestly, like I've been MIA from my own podcast. I haven't recorded in a while. So this is the first episode in a couple of weeks just because summer training has wrapped up over here and had to prioritize some other things. But it's really nice to be back. And I always love talking to you. I feel we've touched on every topic in college recruiting. Of course, there's always more detail to get into, but for those of you who have not seen our previous episodes and you have questions about college recruiting, please go on the Soccer Queens podcast playlist on my YouTube channel and you will see all of our episodes that we've recorded in the past on ID camps, video footage, how to get seen, how to find the right fit, how parents can ruin the college recruiting process. We've talked about everything. So we encourage you to take the time, do your research, and it's free information. So definitely take advantage of that. Don, anything to add before we dive in?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So I have been thinking a lot about your idea of finding the right fit. And I really love that players need to get clear on, okay, what do I want out of a school? Do I want a good soccer program? Do I want Division 1 or Division 3? Do I want an academic school, a school with my major that I can focus in on? Do I want a campus in the city, a big school, a small school? And yes, these are some big rocks that athletes need to consider, but sometimes I see athletes getting way too picky with their lists to the point that they're turning down programs that actually want them. And they're just like, oh, well, the campus isn't nice enough, or I don't like the school colors. Oh, like the stadium wasn't big enough. Like the coach wants me, but I just don't like the other things about it. And they lose out on potentially playing in college and they might not play soccer again. So have you found that being too picky can really hinder players from continuing their college career?
My aunt has a saying that, you know, what you want is different than what you need. And the Rolling Stones even wrote a song about it, didn't they? You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you can get what you need. And I think that we need to get parents and players to understand the difference between what they want and what they need. I mean, what I want is playing at Florida State and flying on a private chartered jet and one of the best locker rooms in the country, and the weight facilities where everything is. I plug it in and the data comes to my phone, and I want, a practice facility and a playing facility and maybe an indoor facility, and I want a swimming pool that I can use, and I want all this gear, and I want to wear Nike, and I don't want to wear Adidas, and I want and I want and I want, and then any school that doesn't fit that, I blow off. And two thoughts come to my mind. One, obviously, don't. Why are we? You can't be so picky. You can't always get the things you want. It's childish. I want to. It's the 7-year-old's mentality that I want to. What do you want to be when I grow up? Well, I want to be a fireman, and I want to be a doctor, and I want to be an NFL quarterback, and I want to. If you ask a 5, 6, 7-year-old what they want, they will name 5 things. Well, adults know that you can't be 5 things like that. So I think it's very childish, and maybe that's harsh, but it's the word that comes to mind. It's immature attitude. And then the other piece is I have this nagging feeling that's been bothering me for a few years, that the way to tell your parents after they've spent tens and tens of thousands of dollars on you, maybe 100,000 over your whole youth career, I don't know, it's a lot of money, that your parents, that as a player, you may feel that your parents have expectations that you continue to play. And if you didn't want to play, what would be a way of self-sabotaging this whole situation to make it so you didn't have to play soccer anymore after high school? It would be to have a list that's so picky that nobody can possibly meet those expectations. And then when that doesn't happen, you go, well, it just wasn't the right fit for me. and therefore I'm not going to play soccer anymore. And what I would ask of players is to please be honest with yourself and with your parents. And if you don't want to play anymore, then don't play anymore. Or if you do want to play, but you don't want to dedicate your life to it, like you would at so many Division 1 schools and even top Division 2 and in NAIA schools for that matter. And then I hold Division 3 a little separately because of the Division 3 philosophy around sports and athletics. But you can always play club. You can always go to the school if soccer is your outlet, if it's your thing that lets you blow off steam, if you like the camaraderie of friends coming together and playing, if you want a feeling that's a little more like youth club soccer, where you go to practice 2 3 days a week and then maybe you play on the weekends and you don't have team meetings and film study and all of that stuff, a little more like youth soccer, that maybe club soccer is what's best for you. And then you can go to school that you can get into in the school of your dreams. So if you can get into, I don't know, Duke University, but you can't play at Duke University, then go play club soccer at Duke University, and it will allow you to go to Duke and play soccer, blow off steam, make friends, have an outlet. Um, and those, I know that's a lot. That's my opening thoughts.
What are some of the big rocks athletes should focus on when making their list? And then what are some of the things that they might have to compromise on?
And it may not even be a compromise, Erica. You don't know what you don't know in life. You don't know. So I will use my last school as an example. So I coached at Feather River College and I still live in the town. It's a school of 750 kids on campus. It's a town of 5,000. We're 2 hours away from two major metropolitan centers, one being Reno and the other one being Chico, California. When I say major, major compared to what we have, we don't have a Starbucks or a think we even have a nail salon and we don't have a lot of things, right? We don't have a Walmart. We don't have anything. We're a very small town, right? And so I would have players coming in from London and from Stockholm and from Austin and from major cities all around the world in the United States. And they would come up here and go, "Oh, this isn't what I thought it would be, and it isn't what I wanted." By the time they left and experienced small town life for maybe the first time in their life, and life in the mountains for the first time, they said they feel this feels like home, right? So you don't know what you don't know until you experience something, and so I encourage our players to create a checklist, and then you're looking for the school that ticks the most important boxes. And you have to rank them, right? You have to rank them. So if somebody wants to be an aerospace engineer, something very specific, something that not every school offers, they want to send rockets and satellites into space. That's their passion. Then one might have to give up the the big school because maybe University of Michigan offers it, but they can't play at University of Michigan, but maybe they can play at Embry-Riddle in Arizona. Well, I don't want to live in Arizona. I want to stay on the East Coast, and I want, and I want, and I want. But what's most important to you? Is your playing most important to you? Is the degree and playing most important to you? And then, or our finances. A lot of parents have to make finances. They have to make going to college a financial decision. It must be a financial decision. Other families will not make it a financial decision. In other words, money doesn't matter, right? I had a parent of one of my clients who said, "I can write a check right now for 4 years to any institution in the country, and it won't dent my bank account. I'm not worried about it." So you imagine somebody saying they can write a $450,000 check right now and it doesn't dent their bank. There are those people too. Wasn't me, wasn't my family. We had a budget. We had a budget of around 20 grand a year. And then that had to cover everything: housing, tuition, food, transportation, everything. That's what that kid had to work with. Um, and what matters to you and what ranks to you, and then who ticks those boxes. And then the flexibility piece, Erica, comes into play because we consider that, uh, maybe life in the mountains allows you to slow down. My recruiting pitch to the parents that I was trying to recruit here, I say to the parents because most of the time coaches are talking to the parents. Parents heavily influence their children's decision on which schools to choose, as they should. It's a family decision. But the good news and the bad news about going to a small town and a small school is the bad news is if you want the parties and the nightlife and you want the big sororities and fraternities and you want more activities and clubs and you can shake a stick at and you want access to the big clubs downtown and you want access to all of that, then this would be the worst place that you could possibly pick. Do not go here. And I would tell parents that, and I'd tell the kids that. But if you want a place where you won't have all of those distractions and you can focus for at least 4 years of your life to becoming the best soccer player and the best academic you can be, and one last time to buckle down and see how much you can achieve, then this is a great place because you don't have all of those distractions. So you have to decide as a player, and your parents have to decide with you, and the family has to decide what are the most important things for us and what's the right fit, what's the right thing for our child that we're dealing with.
I always come back to your college recruiting is like dating example. And it's important to realize that when you're dating, you're never going to find the perfect partner. And there's going to be like little quirks and imperfections about them that, yes, you have to accept and love them for. And I think that's such a good analogy. And I find this often in college recruiting that players are chasing like this perfect school that just checks every single box. And I really like what you said about how it may seem like a compromise, but maybe in the end, it's like the thing you love most about that college when you actually experience it. And sadly, I see this kind of like trickling into the ID camps where players will go to these schools that they see as perfect and checking all the boxes. And then in the end, they just end up wasting so much time going to these ID camps and chasing schools, and these schools don't want them. And then they leave the ID camp and they get no feedback or follow up from the coach. And then they're just sitting there waiting. Oh, well, do they want me or do they not? And it's like, well, if they haven't said anything to you after the camp, then that's probably a no. So can we talk about that? Because I think a lot of players are being like not intentionally led on by colleges, but they're just not being upfront with them. And I don't think players are being upfront with coaches and just asking, hey, do you want me? Am I a fit? And it's just a waste of time.
Well, let's be honest. Let's be fair to some of the colleges too. If you're Stanford, you've had 3,000 kids at your camp. There's no way that a coaching staff can sit down with 3,000 kids and tell them, we want you, we don't want you, this is what you're missing, because parents are expecting for their $250 or maybe it's a week-long camp, maybe it's $750, but they are expecting complete feedback and honesty from the coaching staff on each individual. And um, as you just said, no is an answer. It's not the answer you want. And ignoring a player is an answer. It is basically no. At least for myself, and I can't speak for every coach in the country, but if I saw a player at my camp, and every once in a while, every 3 years, this would happen, a player I had never seen, never heard about, shows up to my camp. And I go, holy crud, this kid could start for us right now. This kid could play for us right now. This kid could help us right now. That kid was not walking away from that camp if they were of a legal recruitable age without us pulling that kid aside. And we'd usually pull them over for lunch with us and we'd sit down and talk to them. What are your plans? Why are you here? What are you thinking? What other offers do you have? We're just trying to dig and find out how serious they are about us, as well as how serious their parents might think, what conversations their families have had around what they're looking for in a school. And uh, eventually the question comes, what would it take for you to come play for us? What are you looking for? And until that conversation happens, then they're not recruiting you. And even if they invite you back to the camp they're not recruiting you. You wouldn't, if somebody's of recruitable age. So again, we're talking what, June 15th after your sophomore year, then they can go ahead and come after you and actively recruit you. And if that happens, they want you. If that's not happening, they don't want you. And that wish and that, oh, I really want to go to school here, I'll go to another camp. Oh, I really want to go, I'll go to another one. And I'll do it again. And I'll do it. And pretty soon you've spent, you know, $1,500 going to that camp 4 or 5 times, and nobody wants you because you're not what they're looking for. And reading between the lines and understanding what's going on is is important if players don't want to waste time and money.
I've seen that situation happen so much, and it just breaks my heart. Like a player will go to an ID camp for a school, and then there's either kind of like vague feedback and not like a commitment, hey, you should play for our program, or it's just silence, crickets chirping, and no follow up. And then the player's like, well, I'm just going to go back to that same campus and do another ID camp with the hopes of them seeing me and getting exposed again, and maybe they'll take me on this second time. And at that point, I'm like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of a waste of time. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, and if an eighth grader goes to a camp, I don't know. Let's say player goes to a camp in eighth grade, and then nobody can talk to them, and then in ninth grade they've gotten better, and they go back, and still nobody can talk to them. I still don't have a problem with this. My son went to Sonoma State. He ended up getting recruited by them, but he went to the Sonoma State camp probably with Franz Hook when he was there as a showing up to do goalkeeper coaches, but he was probably on that campus 4 times before he got his offer to play for them, including one more invite only trial day um, that they can do at the Division II level. Got to play with their players in the spring. So it probably took seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, probably 6 times before they actually made the offer. Um, so I'm not saying that I don't want to be hypocritical and say you should never do that, but you have to know that it's marching along the correct direction. And there should be conversations with the coaching staff along the way that completely are upfront and honest with you. And it's like, yeah, you're going the direction that we want you to go. We want to see you again. But he wasn't going to, 3 camps a year, and he wasn't, he wasn't trying to chase something that wasn't there. So yeah, you can do it multiple times. And if you start it young enough, you can get that coach to know you and to track your progress along the way. And, but that coach is also typically coming out and seeing your club matches also. And then they're investing in you as much as you're investing in them. If it's a one-way investment, then it's probably going nowhere. But if it's a two-way, getting to know you, and they're investing time in you and you're investing time in them, and the communications and the interactions are clearly two-way, that's a different scenario.
So how can players be more proactive so they're not stuck chasing and wishing on a school by the time they get into senior year in high school?
What level can they play at realistically? I mean, I have a friend, a very good coaching friend of mine, who hates this word, and he hears this, he talks about it a lot. He hates the word be realistic because he wasn't realistic, and it got him where he wanted. And I've thought a lot about that. And I thought about, yeah, you can put your own limitations on yourself at moments. But also, there comes a moment where you watch a player play and you go, no way I could stop her. No way I can keep up with her. No matter what I do, there's just no way. She's world class speed, world class abilities, far above me. And this team has 15 players on their starting 15 that are all above me. Clear what this coach wants and how this coach recruits. This isn't the right fit for me if I want to play. I tell the story of a player, Kellis Johnson, that I coached, who's coaching in college now. And the phone call that I made to help her get into college was to Bill Hempen at Colorado, and it's like, do you need a four-string goalkeeper who will probably never be more than fourth string, but will never complain? She just wants to be at your school and wants to be part of the team. And his answer was, who doesn't need one of those? We all need depth for training, and we all need to be able to say, we're going to practice penalties and we don't want to beat up our first team goalkeeper. Go take them on her. And she can dive 50 times the day before a match and not have it affect team performance. So, but if you actually want to play and be part and feel like you are contributing to the culture, to that team's winning and to that team's successes, that's different than being number 33 on a roster of 35 and then moving up to 31 the next year and then moving up to 29 the next year. And by your senior year, look at you, you're traveling. You made the travel squad, but you're still not really contributing. Now, if it's your dream school, if you dreamed of being on the beach in California, and you want to be at UC Santa Barbara, and you want a good UC education, then and that's where you dreamed of living and being, and the way to feed your soccer fix, at least getting practice time and getting to kick it around and make a family of friends that think like-mindedly of you, and the way to do it is to be number 35 on the roster and then 33 and then 29 and then 22, then I don't have a problem with that, honestly. If that's what you want and you're okay with that, why would I have a problem? I have no problem with that. But you have to ask yourself, what's the most important thing to me? Because I feel like most kids think, yes, I'm happy being 35. I've made the roster. I have a chance to prove myself. And then by the end of their freshman year, they realize the mountain is so high that they have to climb that they don't see themselves climbing that mountain in the next year or two. And they don't want to get into the point where they're going into their senior year and now we're looking to play soccer and looking to transfer. They like the school. They don't want to transfer. But if they want to play, and all of a sudden playing becomes more important when you don't get to play. A lot of kids feel like, I can do this. I can climb that mountain. Then you get halfway up Everest and you realize this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. And I'm not prepared for this.
So you've worked in this space for many years and you've probably seen it all, but I'm just wondering what has changed in the recent years in the recruiting space in terms of the parent dynamics, the player dynamics, and just that whole process.
I think social media has created it so that we see what other people are getting and we feel like we deserve because we play in the same platform they play. I have heard more times than I can count, my daughter played against XYZ player who's part of the national team pool and stopped him dead every single time. So now, therefore, my daughter deserves to be where that player is. And there is no deserving, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Every coach looks at things differently. And see, most coaches compare to their conference because they know that the the easiest path, the most direct path to the NCAA tournament is to, or the NAIA tournament, or the junior college national tournament, is to win your conference and then in many cases win your conference tournament. Make no bones about it that that's the best path. Um, and so they're comparing what it's like. This is how other teams in our conference play. This is what they have. This is what's killing us in matches. This is what we're missing. So we are recruiting players to fill those holes. So that's the coach's perspective, but the family doesn't see that perspective. They don't understand that perspective. They only see the surface of this player made that roster and I can play with that player. Well, look at their minutes that they're playing. Look at how much contribution to the team they're actually making. And that's one piece that we can compare. But instead, I think we're looking at just social media. Oh, they committed here, they committed there. And then most players don't continue to follow that player through their career. So it's just this snapshot locking into that snapshot that they see on social media, and then immediate comparisons come in to what their son or daughter looks like compared to what that player was doing and where that player was at that moment in time. Look, we have players that are playing at Indiana. One of them is a men's soccer and university. So perennial talk about a national champion, right? I think 6 national championships, if I'm not mistaken. Anyhow, um, the local players who live locally don't take an investment financially from the coaching staff to get them there. It's always good to have local players that the community can rally around and come and watch the game. You know, they're just not quite there. But to ask a coach to come in, to ask a coach to come in and make an investment in a player that's not in front of them all the time and not local and comes from outside the area, they don't know that family as well, and they don't know that player as well. And no matter how many times they've seen that player in person, no matter how many camps that player has been at, they don't know them as well as that local kid that they've had, you know, more hours of time to invest in because kids right in front of them all the time. And maybe their parents are alumni, which quite often happens. So you can make a roster, but to play on a roster is completely different. I don't know if that answers the question. I feel like I went on a tangent.
It absolutely does. And I do agree that social media has really changed the college recruiting space because of that comparison and that FOMO and just feeling entitled to what your kid might deserve. And I also see a big problem in parents expecting like college soccer as like a transaction for their child too, and they're very like public about it on social media. Oh, I invested so much, they like better get the scholarship so I have an ROI. And I just think that's devastating, and it's just something I've been seeing more of. I don't know if you've seen that a lot, and just kids being more so transactions, and it's not necessarily about like the full college experience as a student athlete, but it's more so about getting all that money back from playing for travel sports.
Yeah, and the landscape has changed dramatically in the last 15 years since the advent. ECNL was the first. Well, no, it wasn't. We had Super Y, that was the very first national league that I recall coming out, and it didn't last too long, and most won't remember it. We had the Super Y League,
I
but
was in
then
it and I feel
ECNL.
old. I
Were
feel
you?
so old
Were
now.
you?
Yeah, I was in
Okay.
Super Y. We played in nationals in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and it was a fantastic league. And yeah, definitely look back fondly on it, but it was short-lived for sure.
And then, but ECNL is really the first one that stuck. That
Yep.
stuck for long term now. Where, and I remember my very first conversation with the first time I ever heard about it was from a buddy of mine who coaches in Vegas. Um, and he was all excited. They joined ECNL, and he said that they'd be traveling to New Jersey, and it's like, what? This is insane. What is this about? I don't understand. Oh, it's the best of the best in the country. And I said, 2 hours from Southern California, which is already the best of the best in the country, arguably, right? You've got more competition in your backyard within a 4 hour driving distance. You could actually go and play a match and be home the same day if you wanted to. Why would anybody do this? It made no sense to me. And so I think this, since we've got this and now we've got the system and it's here, and we're probably not going backwards, no sense complaining too much about it, Erica. We have it. And this idea now that of getting an ROI, I think you're right. Even if it's not said out loud, I think it's in the back of people's minds. It's worth it because my daughter's going to get a scholarship, a soccer scholarship. It's worth it because my son's going to get a soccer scholarship. Or if I'm realistic, I understand they're going to get a partial soccer scholarship and a partial academic scholarship, and that's going to equal a full scholarship. I'm okay with that too, as long as I don't have to pay for my child's housing anymore, and I don't have to pay for my child's food anymore, and I don't have to put out any more money out of my pocket for my child's education. I want it all to be free. And now we come back to the I want, and I want. And parents, it's silly. Number one, I always say it's silly to expect a full ride for this reason. It's silly to expect us to take our children at 18 years old when they are not at this point going to be able to financially take care of themselves. They aren't going to be able to financially pay for their own housing. They aren't going to be able to financially pay for their own food because they're going to school and they're playing soccer. And when would they have enough time to do that? So, what I'm going to ask is for another organization of adults to raise my child for me and to pay for my own child's food and to pay for my child's housing. Uh, it's just not realistic. And that cost alone, Erica, is going to run somewhere between, you know, some junior college in North Dakota, it might be 9,000. But at most schools, it's going to be probably closer to 20,000. And we're just talking housing and food. We know what our food bills are, right? And we know what rent has done. And we know what electrical costs have done. And we know that costs of everything has gone up. And that's the new number. It used to be closer to 15,000 5 years ago. It's closer to 20,000 now, and maybe 22. And if you want to live in New York City, if that's what you're going to insist on, being in Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York City or Seattle or any major metropolitan center, Chicago, it might be closer to 25 or 28,000. That's just housing and food. What about the tuition? And people talk about, I don't want to go to in debt for 100,000. I completely understand. If we're going to make this a money issue, and you can't go into debt for 100,000, which I'm not advocating, I wouldn't have allowed my son to do it. So we chose the state school option, and it's gotten him to his job that he's at. It doesn't have to be. And I'll pick on your alma mater for a minute because I know it's expensive. It doesn't have to be Johns Hopkins. And it doesn't have to be NYU, and it doesn't have to be Princeton, and it doesn't have to be Yale. Now, if you say, well, my kid wants to be a lawyer in New York City practicing corporate law, then I want my kid to be able to maybe intern there and go to school there. So maybe I'm picking Columbia, right? I think they're in New York. Yeah. So I shouldn't even say it. Yeah. So I can pick that, and maybe I'm not picking Harvard, right? And now that's going to cost me money. That is going to be an investment for an ROI later on down the line. If I'm expecting my kid to come out of school being a corporate lawyer on $250,000 a year starting salary, then maybe the investment of $100,000 a year into Columbia isn't a bad investment. We can recoup that back within 3 years, which is generally the business rule. If that you're going to invest money into a business, you want to be able to get your money back in 3 years. So you can look at it as a business transaction and an ROI, but we're talking about an educational ROI, not an ROI of the soccer, of my kids' youth soccer, getting that money back so that they can go get their education and play. I just don't see that as a realistic proposition. And it does work out for some kids, but we're talking about a small fraction of the 9.5% girls and 7.5% boys that are playing college soccer of the high school aged soccer playing pool. We're talking about a very small percentage of that 9.5 and of that 7.5%, where soccer pays for their education, or sports in general. Forget soccer. If you've got a parent listening to football or basketball, yeah, but football's full rides. Yes, but only NCAA 1. When you go to or A, if you go to 2A and you go to the lower levels, then it's not like they don't have the scholarships. They're still partials. They become partials again. And so, yeah, just have to be educated. as parents, and we have to look at the total picture. And I think we are better off. And I hear parents, when the subject comes up, by the way, Eric, that say, every penny that I spent on my kid traveling and us traveling with them and the vacations that we made out of it and the laughs and the memories, every penny I spent, whether it was whatever, $50,000, $100,000 over their career, was worth it. And I would do it again. I'm not doing this for the scholarship. Fantastic. I, I applaud you. I think that's great. I have no problems with that.
That's a lot for everyone to think about, and you nailed it. It's really all about education, and a lot of these things parents aren't just being told, and a lot of clubs aren't telling them a lot of these statistics on full rides and how much everything costs and the chances their kid gets a full ride. So it's really important to get this information out there. And again, I encourage everyone to go through all of our episodes. I will actually link each one we did in the caption of this episode. And Don, I also want you to plug what you do at SRUSA and your services if people want something that's more specific and more detailed, and they also want to save time because you're either investing money or time. And if you want something for free, then you can spend hours watching our content and really carving out the time for that. Or if you want to save time, then you have to spend some money and make an investment. So I do want you to plug your services for those who need some extra help and want to save time.
Thank you, Erica. And people tell me I don't plug things often enough for our business, so I appreciate the opportunity. Sports Recruiting USA, founded in 2010 around the philosophy of bringing uh, an invited only group of players in to represent as an agency. Not open to everybody. We can't help everybody. We don't have the resources for that. And each of our agents has either played or coached in college. The vast majority have coached in college. Many of them are coaching or have also coached professionally. So they can help in the pathway management of your child. And as you said, I've had parents tell me that it takes somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 hours to figure out and to navigate and negotiate this process from from education to signing. Uh, and if you have that time to spend and you like the do-it-yourself process, I always tell people they don't need us. Not that you need us, but it does take time. And what somebody else can do in 2,000 hours, we can do in about 20 because we have connections that they don't have and it's easier for us. So should people want to apply to Sports Recruiting USA, it then goes to an application process, then it goes to an interview process, and then we will honestly tell you at the end of that interview what levels, based on the information, we would see us targeting for your kid. And if you don't agree with that, we're not the right people to help you. But if you say that's what we're looking for, that's what we want, then we can help you. And you can find more information at www.srusasoccer.com. And then you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Threads.
Wow, you guys really are everywhere. You're on the Threads bandwagon now.
Oh, copy and paste onto Threads. I'll be honest, I'm not searching it. I don't even know where it's going, but why not?
That sounds way more efficient anyway. So well done with that. I'll include all of those links in the caption below and the website for SRUSA. So if you do want to apply and sign up for the services, it's right there. And I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. If you have any other topics we haven't covered already, I want you to challenge us and give us some new topics. And we're really up for like really niche topics too. So anything that you have questions on, we are happy to do a podcast on. So Don, thank you again. And everyone else, I will see you on the next episode.